When speaking of Hulk in video games, there's been various attempts at adapting the big green jelly giant to the video game screen, with varying amounts of success. When you think of Hulk in video game form though, what do you usually think of? Well, most people think that it should allow the player to ultimately destroy things, smash things, and just free roam the world in a huge sandbox. Well, what if I told you that there was a certain video game that achieved all these levels of gameplay and is arguably the definitive version of Hulk in video game form? Yeah, you read the title. We're talking about Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. And yes, like everyone says, this game is pretty kick-ass to say the least. Playing this game honestly really truly makes you feel like the Hulk, and I don't think any other video game honestly captured that feeling as well as this game. Released in 2005 and developed by Radical Entertainment, Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction lets you, yes you, the player, explore and use the Hulk in massive amounts of open world areas. Also use a variety of attacks, and when I say variety, I truly mean varieties of attacks.
There's too many of them!
You can use all these abilities to just smash things and destroy enemies, and it's honestly pretty sick. And also it features an original story that's without the burden of making a movie tie-in video game, which is also pretty nice to hear as well. So without the pointless and long intro, let's get into one of my favorite video games of all time and why it's so fucking awesome, Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Yeah, I'm not beating around the bush here. The best thing about this video game is pretty obvious. It's actually the gameplay, of course. This game honestly lives up to the hype, as playing as Hulk is honestly one of the best things about this video game, and honestly pretty perfect in my opinion. The constant motion and ability of movement around the Hulk is honestly pretty awesome, from running around as him to just enabling combat is really freaking awesome and makes you truly feel powerful, something that the other Hulk games never really accomplished. Hell, playing like the Hulk in this game honestly feels so great that even the game that came after this and took notes from this game, the Incredible Hulk video game tie-in, didn't even do it as well as this game, which just tells you how awesome it is to play as Hulk in this game. Also, just the simple motion of controlling the Hulk, from running up buildings effortlessly to just jumping to extremely long distances, it really is fun to move around as the Hulk, and also extremely fluid, which I really like. Also, just the simple amount of attacks and moves you can do are just insane and also amazing. From throwing the tank to thunderclapping in midair to even splitting a car into two pieces and making them into boxing gloves. Similar much? Is honestly really just freaking awesome. And it's great that there's also just so many attacks and combos to choose from, as it keeps you really busy, from earning smash points to buy these combos to just trying out everything. It's awesome. I also love that as you progress through the story, you can also earn smash points and buy future combos that you would use later on, which is honestly pretty great and also shows a lot of progress. A lot of things that games these days need a lot of, for sure. Overall, I'm not going to beat around a dead bush, everyone knows this, but the best thing about this game is honestly just the gameplay and playing as Hulk in general. It's extremely fun and also the best that any other Hulk game would ever get to, so that's got a lot going for this game, but what else is there to say? Now for the story. I do think that it's not as perfect as the gameplay, as I feel like there's a lot of issues with the story, importantly how it's actually told, but I'll get into those later. But for many pros, the story actually has a lot of. As an original story that's not really based off the comic books or really tied to any kind of movie, it's honestly not bad and kinda good. I liked how Banner is slowly losing his mind in the sense of just losing control as being present in the game is honestly a pretty interesting feeling of the story. One of my favorite parts of the story is actually how Banner is losing his mind slowly to this thing called the Devil Hulk, which in the comic books is essentially his darkest personality inside of his mind. Everything that's really fucked up about Banner is basically the Devil Hulk in form. I also like how Blonsky, and even though the game starts out with him looking kind of like an idiot to be honest with you.
Careful, Blonsky! You have no idea what you're playing with.
I have a job to do, General. Banner left his toys in the playground, and I'm not about to watch them burn.
You are stupid.
His whole losing battle with the Abomination, also learning his motivations behind what he's doing, is also pretty fascinating. It almost feels like, as we're watching Banner's story, it almost feels like Blonsky's story as well. I really like seeing that. In general though, I really like the theme of the story, as I think the theme of the story is about people that are slowly losing control and power. For example, Banner is losing control to the Devil Hulk, while the Abomination is also slowly controlling over Blonsky. And it's basically a story about two guys that are slowly losing power, and how both guys react. Banner at the end of the day ultimately wins against the Devil Hulk, and sadly his predecessor, Blonsky, is just not as lucky. Regardless though, I think the story is pretty good, but there are issues for sure. I also think another positive with this game is the voice acting, as I think it's actually pretty good, with a lot of really cool standouts, with even freaking having Hellboy himself, Ron Perlman, playing Emil Blonsky. A freaking awesome addition, and it makes a great addition to the game. Also for graphics, and I understand, yes, it is a 2005 video game, but I think the graphics are honestly pretty decent and not half bad and kind of hold up to this day. Some of the cutscenes for this game look pretty good, and honestly some of the art design looks really solid. Hulk looks pretty good, Devil Hulk looks pretty good, and even the Abomination looks pretty solid, and Mercy looks pretty cool as well, so I really like the art design and some of the graphics for sure. I also really like some of the boss battles in this game, as they are pretty fun and also really fun to fight. Yes, not all of them are perfect and some of them are annoying, but I think I generally had a fun time with the boss battles. They're pretty decent. Now for cons for this game. Well, gameplay wise, I think this game is honestly pretty great, but I don't know if it's just me, but this game is actually pretty hard.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Like, I know it's a video game, and a lot of people are going to say, well, get over it, it's just a video game. But I played this game on the easy difficulty, and some of the sections were just truly a struggle to get through. And I don't know why that is. Maybe some of the enemies are just too much or too overpowered or some kind of balancing issue, but it's just me, but I just think it's a little too hard for me sometimes. Another issue that I had with the game actually came from the story, as I do think it's a good story, but it's so poorly told. It's so poorly executed in my opinion. Like for example, how everything is just explained. Like for example, the game in my opinion just explains things in a big ball of paragraph text right before the mission even starts. And even though all this could have been shown in-game or in a cutscene, it just lazily shows it in some kind of boring paragraph, which is just really weird. Once again, it's like that old time saying.
Anyway, show, not tell.
Also another thing I think they could have improved on is just more scenes to help flesh out the story would have been nice. And this kind of adds back to my previous point. Instead of having a giant text, having more cutscenes or in-game footage to flesh out the story would have been nice. Like, for example, maybe showing more cutscenes of Blonsky's motivations. Like, for example, in the game, we see that his wife dies, and this just comes completely out of nowhere, as it's just never mentioned anywhere in the video game. But maybe having a few cutscenes before, maybe talking about his wife or why he's doing all this, maybe could have really helped the situation and made us feel more bad for Blonsky. And like I said before, I understand there is additional things if you want to find it. Like, for example, there are the Blonsky files in the extra menu. But like I said before, it should have been shown in game and with more cutscenes and foreshadowing. The story, like I said, overall is good, but just so poorly told and needed to be fleshed out more. And overall, Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction is honestly a pretty kick-ass game still. It's a game that I honestly would highly recommend. It has some of the most amazing gameplay and honestly is the definitive experience if you want to play the Hulk in video game form. And despite being over 10 years old, this game still rocks in my opinion. And it's probably the best video game we'll ever get from the Hulk. So yeah, that's pretty much my review of this game. It's honestly sick, and I honestly would highly recommend it if you want to play it. I mean, with the success of Insomniac's Spider-Man game, honestly, who knows? Maybe they'll finally make a new version of a Hulk game with the updated graphics and technology we have now, and maybe take some gameplay tropes from this game. You can have an amazing Hulk game. But honestly, who knows? Overall though, Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction kicks ass, and honestly I highly recommend. Well, thanks for watching and hope y'all have a good day, and I'll see y'all later. See ya.
And Hulk.
Smash.